we will finally complete the biometric entry-exit visa tracking system, which we need desperately. For years, Congress has required biometric entry-exit visa tracking systems. In my administration, we will ensure that this system is in place. And I will tell you, it will be on land, it will be on sea, it will be in air. We will have a proper tracking system.
And he provides that no one will be able to buy or to sell, except the one that has the mark, either the name of the beast or the number of his name. Here is wisdom. Let him who has understanding calculate the number of the beast, for the number is that of a man, and his number is 666.
So how close are we to actually having microchips implanted under our skin? Well, according to the NBC Nightly News with Brian Williams, we might be a lot closer than you think.
More now of our special coverage here tonight, life in the U.S. in 10 years' time. The year is 2017. You're rushed to a hospital unconscious with no ID or medical history, but thanks to a microchip under your skin, it's all there. Science fiction 20 years ago, but a biometric reality today.
In medical news tonight, a chip the size of a grain of rice could save your life.
I've just been chipped myself. It's not a painless process, but it doesn't last too long, not too difficult, minor surgical procedure.
New microchip technology now makes it possible for the emergency room staff to find out about your medical history at the touch of a computer key.
At some point, we're all going to have RFIDs. It might be even in our fingers, where they require it with everything on it.
Instead of carrying credit cards or money, we will probably be implanted with chips.
And now RFID microchips like this are being injected into humans.
I'm sorry, sir, did you just say you would get one implanted in your arm?
Absolutely, without a doubt.
Our driver's license will be on the RFID chip. Our credit card number, all our information will be on this one chip.
The chip is encased in unbreakable glass and is about the size of a grain of rice. The procedure is done with anesthesia and is relatively pain-free.
It felt pretty scary, but at the same time it felt very modern, very 2015.
The government has just approved the use of a computer chip that would be implanted under your skin.
When complete, everyone will have a unique 12-digit identity number.
If hospitals purchase this detection equipment, the system will most likely start to include more and more people in those communities who will want the chips.
Wow.
Interesting stuff.
Everybody could have one of those one day.
Does Google now know everything I do and everywhere I go? Because, let's face it, we like you guys, but you're from Google.
It may be true that 10 to 20-year-olds don't want to wear a watch on their wrist, but you can be sure that they'll be far more interested in wearing an electronic tattoo, if only to piss off their parents.
Forget mobile phones. Your children and grandchildren may well want an implant instead.
You know, when we check out at the grocery store, we'll be swiping our own arm over the scanner. And that will be something we feel we can't live without.
It would be such a disadvantage to not have the implant that it essentially becomes not optional.
Let's imagine a little bit what the future might look like if I could take your stem cells and put them on a chip, or your stem cells and put them on a chip. It would be a personalized chip just for you.
It turns over, but it doesn't stop. But the RFID reader antenna is here. So when I authenticate, the bike powers up.
Imagine if some of these machines could be made so thin, light, and portable that they could be attached right to the surface of your skin and go wherever you go.
There's some very sophisticated device functionality sitting on my skin.
Welcome to the future, specifically the checkpoint of the future.
It is envisaged that the passenger will be able to flow through the security checkpoint without interruption.
This is what IATA, which is the airline industry trade body, is hoping will become commonplace around the world. A sort of one-stop shop for security from the curb to the gate, as they say, with dignity.
Can a microscopic tag be implanted in a person's body to track his every movement? There's actual discussion about that. You will rule on that, mark my words, before your tenure is over.
Mark my words, huh? More like the mark of the beast.
Even though it is called a tattoo, there is no need to pierce or puncture the skin. Instead, the device sticks on.
So what we can do then is we can take this device, laminate it on the skin.
It occurs to me I've got them in my dogs. Why wouldn't I have them in small children too?
There are also several products available to keep track of children. Many of them act as emergency cell phones and tracking devices, with some even able to display on a map the places your child has visited.
They told you we're giving you a nano tracker chip?
Yes.
To think something so small can connect you to everything that matters.
Because I'm in love with my kids' kids.
Because my car lost control while driving.
Because now I'm looking out for both of us.
Because I have diabetes, but it doesn't have me.
Because I spend my life in the ER trying to save yours.
For years, the world has seen reality distorted, facts manipulated, and truth hidden. But there's even more to the story than anyone has ever suspected, because no one has been able to see the whole picture. Until now.
The RFID chip has been the source of controversy for a long time. Is it the mark of the beast? Is it a threat to humanity? Will it be used to track us, to watch us, to follow us? And most importantly, will this little device be mandated by the New World Order? It is very important for you to listen carefully to this entire video. I realize there are various interpretations of Revelation 13, 16 through 17. Some believe the mark is a transhuman process that people go through at the end of the age, while others believe it is a symbol of loyalty to the beast kingdom on earth. Some suggest it's a graven image placed inside of the human body, and still others believe it to be an RFID implant. You might remember back to 2007 when NBC aired a series about life in 2017. In one spot, Brian Williams references this year as the start of a brave new world. This is a clear reference to Aldous Huxley's novel. This novel warned us about technology and how it can be used to control society.
That brave new world will include, it's estimated, some 20...
In another spot, Williams focuses on the possibility that a microchip implant will be placed under people's skin in 2017.
More now of our special coverage here tonight, life in the U.S. in 10 years' time. By that time, there may be all kinds of new ways to safeguard and identify all those things that make each of us unique, our faces, even our fingerprints, even our eyes. Here now with more on the future of technology, NBC's Tom Costello. The year is 2017. You're rushed to a hospital unconscious with no ID or medical history, but thanks to a microchip under your skin, it's all there. Science fiction 20 years ago, but a biometric reality today.
The technology is based on answering one simple question. Am I who I say I am?
Already, fingerprints and iris scans verify passenger identities at airports. Within 10 years, that technology may be even more widespread. And look for more complex facial recognition programs that scan a crowd of thousands looking for a single terrorist. Today's facial recognition software starts with the eyes. Then it maps out the contours of the face and compares that against a database of millions, a database that's growing by the day. What's next? At the University of Bath in England, researchers predict big changes for consumers.
I think it is possible to free us completely of our wallets and keys using biometric technology, if that's what people want in 10 years' time.
In fact, it's already here. The latest home security locks use fingerprints to control deadbolts. And at the Jewel Osco grocery store in Chicago, some customers pay using their fingerprints. No paper or plastic.
You don't really need anything other than your hand, and you already got that with you.
So will future department stores scan our irises, like in the movie Minority Report, then offer products catered to who we are?
Hello, Mr. Yakamoto. Welcome back to the Gap.
Experts say that technology is here now. The challenge is to safeguard our privacy in a brave new world. Tom Costello, NBC News, Alexandria, Virginia.
RFID has gained a strange and rapid popularity over the past decade. And now people are openly chipping themselves and posting videos online about their experiences. Other implantable devices are also being popularized by the mainstream media, now more so than ever. Why have these device implants become so popular? We've seen sources pushing this message for some time now. BuzzFeed, a YouTube channel that knowingly pushes New World Order propaganda, just featured a segment of a man who used an RFID implant to pay for all of his bills. Is it a fakery, or is there really something about this chip? The RFID chip is exceptionally dangerous, and there is a reason why. It hardwires you to the World Wide Web, the Matrix. RFID chips and other implants can interact with your body and collect data, and upload this data to the www that was birthed at CERN in 1989. The fact is that programmed microchips are so advanced in 2016, they can collect massive quantities of information on just about every aspect of your body, including tracking disease progression, tracking blood glucose levels, tracking hormones, etc. Early on, RFID implants were marketed to high-risk populations, such as the elderly, people with dementia, people with diabetes or epilepsy. This was done under a patent called Verichip, which caused a firestorm of speculation that it could be an early test run for the mark of the beast. The problem is that many people were so obsessed with Verichip that they completely overlooked a much larger problem. I will expose this problem in this video. But let me first tell you some details about how I know this. I've said little about myself, and I'm very sorry to have to maintain such strict anonymity. I currently serve as a professor of science at a school of medicine. I am also a part of the alternative health community. In my career, I've worked in infectious and communicable disease epidemiology. It may sound like a mouthful, I realize, but it is true. I studied and tracked the progression of a variety of diseases in the public. Within the past 5 years, however, my research has been in medical technology, informatics, medical equipment and trends, and I teach students in these areas. I have worked extensively with medical robots, biometric systems, radio frequency identification, and know the potential danger of these technologies. I now speak out publicly against RFID and biometrics in healthcare. I believe humanity is facing one of the greatest assaults on the right of privacy that we have ever seen, and I'm determined to fight back against it. The RFID chip revolution began around 2002 through 2004, mostly as a concept that had not fully been implemented. Around 2005 through 2008, the chip began to be introduced into the markets. This was around the time when Walmart began cooperating with the Department of Defense in the United States on a massive RFID initiative. Europe has been quicker to adopt RFID into use, and now the chip is a part of everyday life of Europeans. Some Europeans have already received RFID chip implants for ease and accessibility, payment, and security. For example, a news clip released showed the mass chipping of an entire office in Sweden as a part of modernizing the complex.
Here at the newly opened Epicenter office complex in central Stockholm, workers no longer need a badge or a passcode to open doors. A microchip implanted in their hand does the trick. The radio frequency identification or RFID chip is made of Pyrex glass and contains an antenna and a microchip with no need for batteries. It allows carriers to open doors, operate a photocopier or swap contact details via a smartphone.
The chip is the size of a larger rice grain. It's about 12 millimeters in size. That's put in with a syringe. And it sends an RFID code, so it's an identification tool that can communicate with objects around you. So practical here, you can open doors using your chip. You can do secure printing from our printers with the chip. But you can also communicate with your mobile phone by sending your business card to individuals that you meet.
While the current range of benefits the chip offers is rather limited, its makers say the aim is to explore possible uses and to see how products and services can be developed around the technology. It's hoped in the future workers equipped with the chip will be able to purchase food in the canteen and even get health checks.
So some of the future areas of use, I think, like anything where you today would use a PIN code or a key or a card. So payments is, I think, one area. I think also for healthcare reasons, that you can sort of communicate with your doctor and you can get data on what you eat and sort of what your physical status is.
Its manufacturers claim the chipping is completely safe, but it has raised concern among civil liberty groups worried that it's not hacker-safe and could be used without the wearer's consent to track their whereabouts or gain access to private information.
What I'm about to say might shock you, and I know it to be a fact because of my expertise. The elites have already chipped millions of people while they have slept, when they were put under, during surgical procedures and received medical device implants. Did you know that medical technology companies began to secretly implant chips into devices like hip implants, total knee replacements, titanium rods, medical mesh, pacemakers and defibrillators, prosthetics, and even breast implants now contain small microchips inside of them? There are millions of people on Earth who walk around with these implants. The conspiracy to place microchips into people began back in the first decade of this century. The problem is that everybody was focused on Verichip. What they didn't realize is that chipping began before Verichip was mass-marketed, roughly around the years 2007 through 2008, the year of Obama's election. Millions of microchips are sitting inside of people's bodies as a part of a medical device.
Change happens. Change happens because the American people demand it.
Let me provide further evidence that chipping every individual is not a conspiracy. It is a fact, whether it's the mark of the beast or not. They want to chip every single person in the entire world. Here is a white paper produced by Skyatech and its parent company, JADEC, an industry leader in healthcare RFID. If you aren't familiar with what a white paper is, it is a government or authoritative document that gives direction on a particular issue. The white paper outlines the importance of embedding microchips into a variety of devices in the medical setting. There could be many benefits, including cost savings for the hospital, but it also gives the ability to track patients in real time. This white paper is from December 2007. This was around the time of NBC's Brave New World special featuring microchips. It was the year the presidential election began in the United States. And it was also the year that the traitor American Medical Association wholeheartedly endorsed implantable microchips in healthcare. All people were worried about during this time was a Verichip injection. They didn't do it this way. They didn't chip people this way. They found another covert means of doing it. I believe RFID and other implantable technologies are extremely dangerous to privacy, and that is why I'm speaking out. I believe the microchip plays a part in the overall mark of the beast because it links you or hardwires you to the World Wide Web. This type of implantable technology will play an essential role in the tracking of humankind upon the Earth in the near future.
That I'm not a medical doctor. I'm an engineer. And so my part of it was designing the microchip, not interfacing it to the nervous system and this type of thing. But byproducts that came from that were other microchips that began being used in places like Chino prison. Instead of a lesion in the brain, they were using a microchip for sex offenders and child molesters. Now, folks, this was a progression of things that happened. And as it moved along, the chips became more sophisticated, and at one point they determined that we can't use a flat chip that has to be surgically implanted. This won't work. We got into designing cylindrical architecture, got into designing stacked strata, and building a cylindrical chip. This microchip, in fact, my wife has got one in her purse. It's going to be difficult to pass it around to everybody in here. In some meetings we can do that. Here it would be a little difficult. But this microchip, very small, fits through an eye of a hypodermic needle. Now, right here in Spokane, or in Sacramento, you have been exposed to this in pets and this type of thing. We've been using it for brands. We've been using it for all kinds of things. There's a group called InfoPet down in Los Angeles that claims they can keep track of 1 billion pets to within 10 feet of where they're at. And so these things are here. The reason we're here and sharing with you tonight is that these things are real, folks. And we're moving to the positive identification of the microchip. I'm going to kind of bunch some things together here, but one of the things that happened was we went out, we spent $1.5 million doing some research on places to put the microchip. We had determined this chip has 250,000 components, a little lithium battery built into it, and a charging circuit. It fits through a hypodermic needle, and one of the problems was you've got to recharge this thing. You can't run in and change your battery like you do on your watch once a year, and so they've got to recharge this thing. And so we had a charging circuit built into it, and it was a charging circuit built on temperature change. We spent $1.5 million, between 1.2 and $1.5 million, trying to determine where the places on the body were that the temperature changed the most rapidly. They could have asked any mother. All they'd had to do was ask her, because the places they came up with, and I've got the reports back on it, the places they came up with were just below the hairline, on the forehead and on the back of the right hand. 2 places in the body. I think it was kind of interesting because there wasn't an antichrist in that group. There was 100 men involved in it, or actually 100 men and a couple of women involved in the project. There wasn't an antichrist. There wasn't anybody that came in wearing long red underwear and a tail and a pair of horns. Everybody was, they were just guys trying to do a job. We had a lot of freedom in what we were doing, and we were all trying to do the very best we can. One of the things during the project engineer doesn't always get to control everything, and I fought the use of lithium as a battery source. I didn't like the idea of lithium because I felt that lithium was a little risky in some areas, and I felt that it might cause us some problems. I wanted to go to a couple other ones, gallium arsenide. I wanted to go to a couple other battery sources, and they wouldn't go to that with me. Then I began to understand, after God put the call on my life, and I began to look at Scripture, why? And I would like to have you turn with me to Revelation 13, and I'm going to show you some things. The Bible that I had at the time, I read it, and it said in verse 16, it said, "And he caused us all, both small and great, rich and poor, free and bond, to receive a mark in their right hand or in their forehead." Now, the Bible I had said on the right hand or on the forehead. I looked at that and I said, praise God, I didn't do it. I wasn't a part of it. Oh, isn't that good? And the Lord said, look at the word mark. And I said, but Lord, he said, look it up in the Greek. And I've got the pages from the Strong's Concordance here so that you can look it up yourself. The word mark is charagma in the Greek. And it's 5480 in the Strong's Concordance in the Greek. And it says a scratch, an etching, a stamp, as a badge of servitude, or cut into. It takes you to the word charax, which is to sharpen to a point, the idea of scratching, a stake, a pointed object, pointed into. I believe what John saw as Jesus was giving him the book of Revelation, I believe what he saw was a hypodermic needle, and I'm going to tell you why. Because in the meetings that I have been in, meetings in Luxembourg, meetings in London, meetings at the Sir Francis Drake Hotel in San Francisco with a lot of these people, I've been in 17 of these One World type meetings, the whole idea behind it is identification. And folks, it's not a barcode. You can't contain enough in a barcode. First thing is, nobody would accept a barcode. Who wants that thing out there? But I believe it's the microchip under the skin. And by the way, I'll go into at the last meeting we had this morning, a church that we were in. A man walked up who was a government employee right here in Sacramento and said, "I attended a meeting last week where they said key personnel will receive the microchip, government personnel, key personnel," and he was in that meeting. And so we're finding these things. Well, God showed me something else. He said, take a look at not the numbers 666, but the word for 666. I said, Lord, I didn't know there was one of those. And there is. It is 5516 in the Strong's Concordance, and it's Chi-Xi-Stigma. The 22nd and 14th, an optional letter of the Greek alphabet, intermediate between the 5th and 6th, used as numbers denoting respectively 660 and 6. That takes you to the word stigma. The last part of that word is stigma. Now I want you to listen to this carefully because it's really, it was difficult to dig this out. It's difficult to share it with you. The word stigma is to stick or to prick, a mark incised or punched for recognition of ownership. And so I looked at all of those and I wept for days. And God said, you let me take care of it. You go and share the message. I've set you, O Son of Man, as a watchman on the wall to sound the trumpet. And if you don't sound the trumpet, their blood is on your hands. But if you sound the trumpet and they don't listen, the blood is on their hands. And folks, I'm here to share these things with you for a reason. There's too many things that have tied together in these days. We have children in Florida right now in daycare centers receiving the microchip identification. It is being used in many, many areas. There's Alzheimer's patients receiving it. The whole thing about the pictures on the milk cartons and the paper bags was government funded, and that thing was to condition you about lost children. And it has served its purpose, and you're seeing it disappear now. You check back and find out who paid for it. There wasn't a committee paying for it. It was paid for through an organization called Evergreen, which is a CIA operation. And they paid for it. Now, I want to point something else out to you. I fought the lithium, and they overruled me, and they used lithium. I talked to one of the doctors at my Boston Medical Center about the concentration of lithium used in the microchip. I said, what happens if that breaks down? If the chip breaks down, if there's a blow struck and it breaks down? He said, and this guy was an atheist, he said it'll cause a sore, a grievous sore. And I went and I looked at Revelation 16, verse 2. And the first went and poured out his vial upon the earth, and there fell a noisome and grievous sore upon the men which had the mark of the beast, and upon them which worship the image. I want to point out something to you, folks. That sore is singular. It's sore. They didn't break out with sores. They broke out with a sore. If that might, I believe God's going to pop them microchips all at once for all the people that have cut them, and they're all going to end up with a boil on their hand. Praise God. You know, it's an interesting thing about God is omnipresent, omnipotent. He is everywhere. But what's the Antichrist got to do? He's got to use every bit of technology he can to keep track of you and I. And so he's going to use everything he can, and that's the reason why I believe we've come to this. It's not an easy message. It's a hard message to go out and give, but I want to tell you something, folks. God is on the throne, and we win. And if you'll check the tomb, it is empty. And we need to be excited about that. We're living in the most exciting time we could ever live in. The reason why you're pulled together as a body of Christ is to be with one another, to support one another, to lift one another up. I had people ask me this morning, well, what should we do? When's this going to happen? I tell them, you know, the when doesn't make any difference. If you don't know the who, you're in trouble already. I want to tell you something. I'm not selling bomb shelters, folks. I'm not selling a place in your backyard to store food. I'm not selling a special glove to wear. I'm not selling anything. I'm sharing with you a message. The technology is here. Now I want to move on a little bit more in this technology. We now have 23 satellites overhead that can read a postage stamp laying on a tennis court. If you think you're keeping a secret the fact that you're coming to church here, the satellite can read your license plates every 19 minutes without any problem at all. The technology is there. People talk about here a while back there was flashes across the sky and they were wondering what it was. These were satellites being taken out of the system. Satellites that their perigee and the apogee will interfere with a new series of satellites that's going up. It was just announced about 3 weeks ago. We knew it was coming for a long time. They are LEO satellites, low Earth orbiting satellites. These satellites are orbiting 98 to 100 miles up. There is 66 of them being put up by Motorola in conjunction with the Russians. These satellites will do away with all cellular towers, and there will not be a place where you can go to hide. We can pick up your body temperature change right now, the difference between 98.6 and 104, and so we can pick that up. So what I'm telling you is that there's no place that you're going to run and hide. Now don't get in despair on me, because I want to tell you something. Again, we win. Jesus was standing there. They picked up stones to stone him, and he walked back through their midst, and they saw him not. Where are you going to hide? You want to fear what Big Brother's going to do? You want to fear what the government's going to do? I'm going to tell you, folks, we're moving rapidly to a cashless society. We're moving to the point where your debit card is going to be it. It is now your credit card and debit card together, and we're moving rapidly towards that. In Clinton and Gore's new book, Putting People First, he says, and Hillary said today, they want every man, woman, and child in the United States to be carrying a smart card. The smart card is a French card. 1 million of them have already been brought into Maryland in the welfare system. Folks, it has the microchip in it. It is the same readout as the microchip for the back of the hand. And the system is being prepared for that microchip. Now, these cards are coming in. That's the smart card. The ATM machines are being changed so that they will scan this type of thing. These things are moving rapidly. So the system is being set up. The message that I have to give you is don't take it. Don't take it. Somebody comes and tries to talk you into this new identification, you've got an answer for them. Don't take it. It says, who are these around the throne, the myriads and myriads around the throne? These are those that lost their life because they would not take the Charagma, the mark. So there's going to be people that are going to lose their lives because they won't take the mark. We are moving rapidly in that direction. The Secretary of Health, Education, and Welfare stated that welfare fraud is running $500 million a quarter. He was on a talk show. He said that is going to cease by the end of '93. We are going to have positive identification. The talk show host asked him what it was. He said electronic media under the skin. The Immigration and Control Act of 1986, Section 100, states the President has the authority to order whatever type of identification he deems necessary, whether it be electronic media under the skin or whether it be an invisible tattoo. The invisible tattoo was thrown out because it can't be upgraded. The microchip has an E squared prom section of it. It can be, a part of it can be erased and you can write more into it. So you can change the data. The chip fits exactly what the Bible says is happening. People say to me, well, what happens if I cross my fingers when they come and bring me the chip, and I take it and I cross my fingers and or I cross my toes or I cross my legs or I do something, and I don't really mean it when they give it to me? I don't have an answer for you except this. Revelation 14, verse 9, and the third angel followed them, saying with a loud voice, if any man worship the beast in his image, and receive his mark in his forehead or in his hand, the same shall drink of the wine of the wrath of God, which is poured out without mixture into the cup of his indignation. And he shall be tormented with fire and brimstone in the presence of the holy angels, and in the presence of the Lamb. And the smoke of their torment ascendeth up forever and ever, and they have no rest day or night, who worship the beast in his image, and whosoever receiveth the mark of his name. Here is the patience of the saints. Here are they that keep the commandments of God and the faith of Jesus. Folks, that's the only answer I have for you. I'm saying don't take it. This is not something you can play with and back out of. I have sat there with Gates from the CIA, with Bush when he was with the CIA, with Henry Kissinger and these people in meetings in Luxembourg where they discussed the very thing you cannot control a people if you cannot identify them. And that's why we have $500 million in welfare fraud every quarter, is because you can't identify people. You can fake cards. You can counterfeit cards. You can lose cards. You can loan your card to somebody else. But the microchip in the hand, you cannot lose your hand. You might lose your keys, but you can't lose your hand. You can't bend, staple, or mutilate the thing. You can't counterfeit it. And if somebody steals your hand and goes to the market to use it to buy food, the guy's going to know right away something is wrong. Okay? Can you imagine carrying your friend's head into the supermarket and saying, I want to buy these groceries? Folks, it is the ultimate identification, and it is here. It is being used. 17,000 babies were done 3 years ago. There is no ill effects. We've got these projects coming. I just talked to a man from Sweden today, and he said they did 6,000 men in Sweden with the microchip and have had no problems at all. It is coming worldwide.
Moving on to our top international story this hour, we are following some disturbing news out of the tech world, as this week the Confederation of British Industry, or CBI, issued a warning about the future of microchips in the workplace. According to The Guardian, a British company has already fitted 150 implants in the UK alone. Biotech's chips, according to its website, quote, store a range of encrypted personal data from bank account details and passwords to medical data or Bitcoin wallet details. The device is implanted between the thumb and forefinger, and depending on which kit you choose, costs between $90 and just over $330. The CBI, which represents 140 trade associations and 190,000 businesses, told The Guardian, quote, while technology is changing the way we work, this makes for distinctly uncomfortable reading. Firms should be concentrating on rather more immediate priorities and focusing on engaging their employees. The organization is concerned that employers could eventually force workers to be chipped, the way you may chip your pets, for example. The Secretary General of the Trade Union Congress in the UK added, quote, microchipping would give bosses even more power and control over their workers. There are obvious risks involved, and employers must not brush them aside or pressure staff into being chipped. Now, you might be thinking such concerns sound hyperbolic, but you would actually be sadly mistaken. Believe it or not, companies have already started microchipping employees. For example, a cafeteria kiosk producer in River Falls, Wisconsin, chipped employees last year.
There are governments that run central banks that they were one of the first ones to call us to say, we've got to control our employees, and we need to have certain access levels, and we can't have that compromise, and they saw that as a solution. They need that. They need those controls.
Joining us now with the future of microchipping in question is former UK Member of Parliament George Galloway. All right, George, how difficult is it really to remember banking information? I mean, do you think average people really want these chips?
Well, I'm sure not. I mean, beasts are branded and slaves are enchained. This is, I suppose, the next stage. The wage slave will be microchipped. And the employer, imagine Amazon, just for an example, other brands are available, employing 500,000 people, every one of them one day perhaps microchipped. So the company will not be able just to employ you at rock bottom rates. It will know how long you went to the toilet for electronically. I might even know what you did there. It is grotesque, it is obscene, it is, on the face of it, ridiculous, except, as you've just pointed out, it's already happening. And even here in Britain, it's happening. It's happening in the United States. It's happening in the tech industries already. And of course, it's all very well saying it's voluntary, but when you're a wage slave, voluntary doesn't mean much. If it's get this job and sign up for the chip, or don't get the job, well, people will take the chip.
What concerns do you have about this technology, and are you confident in the British government's ability to regulate these chips?
I wouldn't be confident in the British government's ability to regulate fish and chips.
We're going to look back on 2018, 2019, 2020, because there's going to be big challenges coming. This is us for the fight. This is God giving us a chance to get ready. You should have gotten ready now. You'll never know what hits you if you don't wake up.